After the success of my Epic Dragon Game Jam last summer, I figured, as I neared completion of my 10th game, what better way to celebrate than with another game jam. My previous game jam, the Epic Dragon Game Jam, ran from March 1st to August 31st, giving participants the entire summer of 2025 to come up with any kind of game they fancied, so long as it was all about dragons. The jam ended with a sexy 69 participants and 16 submissions, including my own Fantasy Pre, the Dragon Racing TTRPG. My new jam, the Magic School TTRPG Jam, was a bit smaller with a still impressive 42 participants and an amazing 20 submissions, including 2 games of my own, which I will go over later. As I did for my previous jam, I'd like to take a moment to highlight and gush about each of the wonderful games that were submitted to my jam, in no particular order, of course. Like my previous jam, the Magic School TTRPG Jam was unranked and just for fun. I will, however, be rating these games in a few categories as a surprise, and because, why not, I do what I want. These ratings will be just for fun and feedback. I truly believe that all games submitted to my jams are fantastic, and I'm so proud of my community for working so hard to submit to the jam. I would like to sincerely apologize for taking as long as I took to read over all the submissions and make this video. My life got really busy recently, and I frequently mismanage my time. But better late than never, I guess. And be sure to stick to the end for an announcement about my next jam. I'll be rating all these games on a scale of 1 to 3. 3 meaning the game exceeds expectations, and 1 meaning the game leaves you wanting a little bit more. Most games will receive an average score of 2 in most areas. The categories for the ratings are as follows. Theme and creativity will judge how well a theme was incorporated and how original the content was. Game design and mechanics will judge how well the rules support play and whether the submission feels playable as written. Clarity and readability will judge how easy the game was to read and understand and whether the PDF was well organized. Presentation and layout will judge how polished and pleasant the PDF was to read and if any art was included was visually appealing. Completeness and scope will judge whether the submission feels complete for its size. Does it deliver a full playable experience regardless of page count? Expelled by Toribee. In Expelled, I'm sure you can guess, you've been expelled from your magic school and are forced to continue your magical education on your own. The game uses 2d6 and a deck of tarot cards, which I love. Always love a good tarot game. And the rules suggest a journal for handwritten entries. The game has a heavy focus on how your character feels in the weeks following the expulsion, through a series of flashbacks as well as what they become as they move on. I feel like even though you've been expelled from your magic school and the game doesn't technically take place in a school, I feel like the game fits the theme very well as you learn who you are outside of magic school and invent your own new spells. For theme and creativity, I award a 3. The mechanics are simple and easy to understand. You combine d6 rolls and tarot card draws to journal your feelings about events and memories in the 7 weeks after expulsion. And again, I can't stress how much I love tarot cards. Another 3 for game design and mechanics. Clarity and readability gets another 3 for large text and readable font, and the concepts were easy to understand. For presentation and layout, I have to critique that the text in several areas is right up to the edge of the page, rather than leaving any margin room. But other than that, there are little images every few pages to break up the text, and the chosen font is very pleasing to read, in my opinion. Presentation and layout gets a 2. Lastly, completeness and scope gets a 3. I feel like the game leaves you wanting more in the best way. The game takes you through the introspective 7 weeks and concludes with one last tarot reading based on your progress. With a straight path forward and a clear ending, completeness and scope earns a final 3. I suppose we're starting off strong with a 14 for Expelled by Toribee. Toribee Games has a ton of other games featuring a blend of inclusive sci-fi horror and self-exploration games. Be sure to check them out on itch.io. The Odd Grimoire by Dudio. In the Odd Grimoire, you get to record new occult discoveries in your grimoire, a collection of pages or a notebook of your choice. All you need to play is a set of 3 6-sided dice and something to write with and on. To play, simply roll the dice, interpret the results, and journal. The game is full of random tables for inspiration, but of course, as a journaling game, you could take whatever inspiration you want and change it up as you please. Even though the game doesn't specifically revolve around a magic school, I feel like the journaling grimoire still fits the game very well, and you could easily adapt the game mentally to the spellbook being your magic school homework. For theme and creativity, a 2. There isn't much in the way of mechanics in the game, but that goes for most journaling games. The 6-sided dice are primarily used to consult the random tables found throughout the rulebook. For game design and mechanics, also 2. I feel like the game is very easy to read, but there is some question as to what exactly the creator had in mind for the journaling aspect. There are inspiration tables, but not a lot of direction on how you create your grimoire. For clarity and readability, again, a 2. I do very much like the simple design and layout of the rulebook. The colored pages and simple images every few pages has a cozy feel, and there are even a few blank colored pages in the back of the book that you could print for your grimoire. For presentation and layout, also a 2. For completeness and scope, I do wish there was a bit more content and direction, or more detailed prompts for journaling in your grimoire, so I have to give the Odd Grimoire a final 2. With 2s across the board, that gives us a total score of 10 for the Odd Grimoire. Dudio has several other games on itch.io, and you could also be sure to check them out on Twitch. 9 Bytes by Sustrato. 9 Bytes is a one-page foldable zine TTRPG that sort of doesn't really fit the theme of the game jam, but I'm also not really strict about the rules or whatever. So in 9 Bytes, you can play as cats and mice using magic sigils to try to find enough food to last the season. Cats need to catch 5 mice, and mice need to survive. For theme and creativity, I give a 1 because the game doesn't really fit the theme of a magic school, as there's no mention of schools and only brief mentions of magic sigils. As for game design and mechanics, I feel they are fast and simple and easy to follow, so here 9 Bytes gets a 3. For clarity and readability, the only thing I would change is that making the text justified instead of left aligned, so I'll give another 3. For clarity and readability, the only thing I would change is making the text justified or centered instead of left aligned, so I give another 3. Presentation and layout is also pretty great. It's simple but has a bit of good art, but not so much so that it takes away from the text. A pop of color would be fun, but I do see how grayscale page is easy on printers. Let's give another 3. Finally, for completeness and scope, I feel like the submission didn't really follow the theme and is also a one-pager. I have to give a lower score for this category because most of the other submissions were much longer and used the months available to create larger projects that did follow the theme. So for completeness and scope, I'll be giving a 1. The total score for 9 Bytes is 11. Sustrato has a few other fun projects available on itch.io, so make sure to check them out as well. Finals by Meadow. Finals by Meadow takes place in a magic culinary school where arcane chefs must go out and gather ingredients to prepare magical meals as their final exam. The game uses a deck of playing cards and some dice, 4 and 6-sided to be exact. After that, all you need is a note-taking method of your choice and a token representing yourself. Your cards will be dealt out in a grid to explore where you flip cards and roll dice to gather ingredients. For theme and creativity, I have to say I love the inclusion of Fae patrons within the deck. I'm a sucker for fairies, if you can tell. And with each card creating a different little story leading you to a new ingredient while still leaving room for interpretation, the game is very open and creative. First category gets a 3. Next is game design and mechanics. I love the simplicity of card games, and I love seeing everything that can be done using a deck of cards. This game feels like a great solo card game / wilderness dungeon crawl. It's really giving Delicious in the Dungeon light, where you get to gather ingredients and decide how the flavors work together. Simple mechanics and colorful descriptions will always be a 3 in my book. As for clarity and readability, Finals is also very clear and easy to follow. The text is large, doesn't use difficult language or fonts, so another 3 for clarity and readability. For presentation and layout, I love the text and font. It's large and easy to read while giving a bit of a script-like curve that doesn't affect readability. I do wish there were some more artwork throughout the PDF, so let's go with a 2. Lastly, for completeness and scope, I feel like the game is very contained and complete while also having enough variety to remain fun for several game sessions. For completeness and scope, another 3. The final score for Finals is 14. Meadow has a variety of free games available on itch, so be sure to check them out. I'll be checking out Scoundrels. Be alien, do crimes. Wizard 102 by GabeMalk. Wizard 102 is a narrative-focused TTRPG based on one of my favorite old computer games, Wizard 101. Players take on the role of young wizards, learning new spells, attending classes, taking tests, and using their magic to solve challenges. While the game theme is perfectly on point, the game is very largely based on Wizard 101, so while creativity was of course present in the process, I have to give the category a 2 because I don't see much in terms of strong differences. For game design and mechanics, I love the proposed spell cards like the ones used in the video game, and I think the magic schools that Wizard 102 is offering to start out with, Fire, Ice, and Lightning, are great choices. I personally have always been a Storm Wizard. But again, because the mechanics are pretty strictly taken from the inspiration material, I'll give another 2. Next, for clarity and readability, I feel like the content is very clear and easy to follow and read. So for clarity and readability, a 3. While the layout of the PDF is very well organized, and the font very easy to read, I feel like there could have been a bit more to look at. The background looks like an old spell scroll, which is a lovely touch, and the rules did include an image of one of the spell cards, which I loved, but overall I have to give presentation and layout a 2. Because the game is still in the experimental phase, the rulebook so far lacks monsters, plot hooks, and/or adventures, leaving only the core system to play with. I'll have to give completeness and scope a 2. There's a lot to work with, but I feel like the intention was there to create more. I'd love to revisit this game once complete to live out my fantasies that weren't available in Wizard 101. Wizard 102 gets a total score of 11. Unfortunately, I did go back to see if there were any updates on Wizard 102, since it took me so long to write this review, and when I looked, Wizard 102 was gone. So be sure to check out GabeMalk's other games on itch.io instead. Cheaters Never Win, Part 1 by TanisGames. Cheaters Never Win is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition adventure that takes the players from levels 1 to about 7 in a magic school inspired by Strixhaven and Arcana Academia. For theme and creativity, the D&D adventure fits very well with the theme. I love the little surprises each quarter has to offer. For theme and creativity, a 3. As for game design and mechanics, since the game is a D&D supplement, there weren't really any strictly original mechanics, but what's available suits existing D&D mechanics very well, so a 2 for game design and mechanics. Next up, the clarity and readability of the document has been executed pretty well. The text is a decent size, and my only criticism is that some of the lines are a little too close together. So for clarity and readability, a 2. I love that the layout in the game is divided into school quarters, and it looks very much like a professional D&D supplement. For presentation and layout, a 3. I feel like the completeness and scope of the adventure has earned a 3. It's everything you need to run the adventure without being overwhelmed, and there's a very good variety of different school happenings. Total for Cheaters Never Win is 13. Be sure to check out TanisGames and other supplements for TTRPGs of all kinds on itch.io. Potion Panic by Wyvern Games. Potion Panic is an easy little 2-page party game where you're struggling against your opponents to brew your potions using a limited supply of ingredients. The game has 4 different potion types and 12 different ingredients. I'm definitely a big fan of potions, however, there's no mention of magic schools, so it only half kind of fits the game. For theme, you get a 1, but for creativity, you get a 3, so I'll average you out to a 2. The game design and mechanics can be simplified into a bullet list that fits on a page. You can play in about 6 easy steps, so for this category, a 3. The rules are very clear and the text is large and easy to follow, so you get a 3 for clarity and readability. The presentation and the layout of the PDF is great. I love a bit of color, but I wish maybe there was a little image or logo or something on the actual PDF, not just on the thumbnail. For presentation and layout, a 2. I feel like the game was very complete and contains everything you need to know to play a quick game or 3 with your friends. And while complete, I feel like the game would have excellent expansion potential. I would love to see more potions and an expanded ingredient list for longer gameplay in the future. But for now, for completeness and scope, is awarded a 2. Potion Panic gets a total of 12. Be sure to check out Wyvern Games on itch.io. I, for one, can't wait to find out what Pizza Rats is all about. Your Magic GPA Isn't Gonna Save Itself by ElBuenTocino. Your Magic School GPA Isn't Gonna Save Itself is a simple TTRPG where you create a character, editable PTF included, choose your magic affinity and weakness, and use a combination of playing cards and d6 dice to cast spells and complete mundane actions. Your goal, in 1 session, change your grade on a final exam to get into your dream magic university. And don't get caught. The game includes character sheets, a spell list for characters, a plain text copy of the rules, a color-coded map of the school, and a file just for game masters to run the one-shot. The game fits the theme wonderfully, and I feel like the trope of sneaking into a teacher's office to change your grade is a classic. A 3 for theme and creativity. The mechanics are simple, using a d6 for mundane actions and drawing playing cards to spend mana as you cast your spells. I personally love using cards in TTRPGs, so I give game design and mechanics a 3. The game is very clear and readable, and we love inclusion of printable plaintext copies, so that's another 3. The presentation and layout is pretty good. I love simply designed double-sided trifold rule sets, and I love that ElBuenTocino made their own map for the game to be used as a reference for both players and the GM. The map is relatively plain with simple shapes and colors, but you made it yourself and we all appreciate that. I do wish the GM section and the spell list had the same attention though, so that's a 2. Lastly, for completeness and scope, I feel like the game leaves you wanting more in the best way. There's enough content to run a one-shot and nothing excess. It's not overwhelming to read and you had my attention the whole time, another 3. Your Magic School GPA Won't Save Itself has a final score of 14. Be sure to check out Your Magic School GPA Won't Save Itself and ElBuenTocino's other games on itch.io. The Final Trials by Drama. The Final Trials is a tabletop card game that represents your graduation exam of the Arcana Academy. You choose your suit and compete against your fellow students to be the best and graduate with honors. First, theme and creativity, to which I give a 3 for a unique type of game. I don't see a lot of card games, and the ones I do see, I always love. For game design and mechanics, I can tell a lot of work went into making this game and that the mechanics are very different from most games I've played. However, I did struggle to understand how the game is played, so for mechanics, a 2. For clarity and readability, while the text is very legible and in a good size, I had trouble understanding the wording on how to actually play. But because that might be on me, I'll give clarity and readability a 2. The presentation and layout of the PDF is beautiful and deserves a 3. The pages are unique and well decorated to fit the theme of the game very well. I also really like the font. Lastly, completeness and scope gets another 3, because the game feels very complete and contained. It's something that once I figure out the rules, I could see myself playing time and time again. The Final Trials final score is 13. Be sure to check out Drama's itch.io page and their other cool games as well. Ars Scribus by Canabeens. Love the name. In Ars Scribus, mage students will be drawing their own spells, sigils, using notebooks, including a shared notebook for the party to record new rules and facts learned during lectures. The book includes some fun artwork, as well as some easy-to-follow charts. For theme and creativity, I love games that you can enjoy both in your mind and on the page. Having to draw your spells and mark things down is a great addition to the game, although I am biased because my game does something similar. I'm giving theme and creativity a well-deserved 3. For game design and mechanics, like I said, I love the feature of taking what you learned in lectures and drawing it out in real life. The game also clearly structures out how to organize game sessions with lectures, downtime, and other events. A 3 for game design and mechanics. For clarity and readability, the font is a little small compared to a lot of the other submissions, and for it being just a little smaller, I don't love the chosen font. It was a little difficult to read without zooming in or using my glasses. A 2 for clarity and readability. Next up, presentation and layout gets a 3 for some fun little illustrations and a well-organized read-through. Last up, completeness and scope gets a 3 for having a complete set of fun lectures, adventure sites, perfect for completing small-scale campaigns. Although I would be very excited to see more magical lectures and other content for this game. That's a total of 14 for Ars Scribus. Be sure to check out Ars Scribus on itch.io by Canabeens, as well as their other little games that they have available. Temporal Light TTRPG System-Foxflame Academy by TimeSpaceWarrior. Temporal Light TTRPG Foxflame Academy takes place in a magic school called Foxflame Academy. The rule set is an impressive 63 pages and comes with maps, characters, and more. Starting off with theme and creativity, I love the magic school and the work that went into this great game. For theme and creativity, a 3 for sure. Next, for game design and mechanics, the rules seem like they were intended to be relatively simple, but I had a hard time following exactly what you as a player were supposed to be doing during the game. For mechanics and game design, a 2. Clarity and readability, I did have a hard time reading through the rulebook. There were a lot of spelling and grammatical errors throughout the documents, and a lot of confusing wording. So for clarity and readability, a 1. Next up, presentation and layout, which has earned a 2 because while there are a lot of great content, it was hard for me to find the main rule set and determine what was what and what to read first. Lastly, for completeness and scope, I'm awarding a 2 because despite the work feeling a bit unfinished in the editing and polishing department, it does feel otherwise complete and like it would be very fun to play. Final score for Temporal Light TTRPG Foxflame Academy is 10. Be sure to check out the Temporal Light game series, many of which are browser-based video games, and be sure to check out TimeSpaceWarrior's Discord channel. It can all be found on itch.io. Arcana Academia by The Bit Bet. Arcana Academia is a magic school system that uses a deck of playing cards for its resolution mechanic, as well as a progress escalation clock system. The game has a strong focus on character growth and how the story and events affect your character, causing them to gain new physical and emotional scars, burn their spells, and more. In the back of the book, you can find all the world lore and appendices with useful information. For theme and creativity, I love the world building and characters listed in the back of the book, a 3 for creativity and theme. Next, to the game design and mechanics, I appreciate the little additions and workings of different game parts like the escalation clock and the story arcs, and scars, another 3 for game design and mechanics. The PDF was easy to read and follow the rules, and I like that the text was simple and the headings were in their own color to clearly define the different sections throughout the book. Clarity and readability gets another 3. The presentation and layout of the book is also great. I like the touch of color and the faded card imagery in the background, and having 2 columns of text makes it easy to zoom in and read without having to scroll sideways. A 3 for presentation and layout. Lastly, for completeness and scope, I feel like the game is well contained and gives you plenty of information to work with, especially with the added appendices in the back of the book. It feels very complete. That's one final 3 for completeness and scope. And with all 3s across the board, that's a perfect score of 15 for Arcana Academia. Be sure to check out Arcana Academia on itch.io and other games by The Bit Bet that are sure to make you think. The Arbornauts by SassWrites. Arbornauts is a kids-on-bikes hack in a techno-magical world where life and magic are sourced from the world tree in the center of the universe. Those who sail in the currents or branches of this tree are called Arbornauts. The game takes you through character creation or Arbornaut training. During your training, there are several tracks to choose from, resulting in different characters taking on roles aboard the cruise ship. The final exam is a mini-adventure that uses the skills gained during your training. The process of the game is formatted as bulleted lists that are easy to follow and understand. At the end of the PDF, there's a character sheet and a ship sheet included. I personally have not had the opportunity to play kids on bikes, but reading through this module actually gives me a pretty clear idea on how it would be played and how the mechanics work. I'll definitely be looking at that into the future so I can play Arbornauts with my nerds. For theme and creativity, I have to give Arbornauts a 3 for a great backstory and implementation of a creative magic school. Even though I've never played or read through Kids on Bikes, I feel like the rule set presented in the hack gives me a pretty good idea of how the original game would be played. The mechanics were also very clear, so Arbornaut gets a 3. For the clarity and ease I've mentioned several times already, clarity and readability gets another 3. Layout and presentation, I'll give a 2 since the layout is very clean and easy to read, organized into chronological bullets and information, but the document is plain black and white text with nothing to break up the text. For completeness and scope, I feel like everything that's available is enough to easily run the character creation session and provide plenty of inspiration to run a very long campaign. Completeness and scope gets a final 3. And the total score for Arbornauts is 14. SassWrites has a lot of other games available on her itch.io page, so be sure to check them out. Wizards in Debt by Lilly Woodger. Wizards in Debt is a much larger submission than the average I've read through, and an astonishing 84 pages. I'll admit that I had to skim through rather than reading the whole thing. The game is very well executed with simple and easy to understand mechanics. The fun concept of a mind debt owed to your Grandmaster Wizard is a great reference to the horrible debt we deal with following mundane school. At least in my country, that is. Couldn't imagine the debt that would arise from a wizard school in the United States. Character creation is easy to follow, and there are tons of options and random tables to roll on to create a character unique for the system. There are spell lists with tiers that describe the kinds of effects you can create with different focuses. For theme and creativity, I have to give Wizards in Debt a 3. I love the story and the world building surrounding the mind debt wizards must pay off. Even though the game doesn't take place in a magic school, I feel like the debt that follows fits the theme very well. The mechanics are great, simple to understand, and seem quick to get into. Character creation is awesome, allowing you to create a variety of different characters, with lots but not too many choices. Game design and mechanics gets a 3 as well. Even just skimming through, I feel like the rules are very clear, the text is large, the tables are colored, and there are even diagrams in the chapters regarding combat spells and effects. Clarity and readability gets another 3. The presentation and layout are great as well. I love the little doodles of wizards throughout the book, and I wish there were more of them. Very charming and funny. I love seeing creators doing their own artwork for their projects. That's a 3 for awesome doodles on top of charmingly simple layout. This is a game where I feel like the creator really used up every last minute. Literally, they posted the game less than 2 minutes before the final deadline. I'm always very impressed with the great work creators put in, but I'm astonished with the excellent over 80 pages written for Wizards in Debt. The game feels very complete and has everything you need to run a game as a group of wizards crippling in mind debt. A final 3 for a perfect score of 15 for Wizards in Debt. Be sure to check out Lilly Woodger on itch.io to find more fun TTRPGs set in toxic wastelands as well as some wild-looking video games. The School That Eats Its Students by Trey38. I feel like this title alone pretty much sums it up. It uses the lore book from Adventures in Sanctuary and includes a link within the PDF. It has major samurai vibes where players get to be vigilantes, investing in a school where the students go in but never come out. The adventure is easy to read through and would be pretty easy to adapt to suit many different games. I personally find the characters and setting to be very interesting and well thought out. For theme and creativity, I'll give a 3 for interesting spin on a magic school in a great setting. The game uses the mechanics of another system, with a link on the first page to the PDF, so I can't really judge what was created, and without reference to the rules and mechanics that would be used, it leaves me wondering exactly how the game would be played. So I have to give this category a 1. The information that is present is for the most part easy to read and follow and is organized chronologically, so I'll give clarity and readability a 3. However, I have to judge a little more harshly on the layout of the submission. I have nothing against landscape files, but on the smaller device on the phone it can be difficult to read, as you have to scroll across the page to read each line of text. And the text is pretty close to the edge of the page, so I have to give presentation and layout a 1. For completeness and scope, I feel like the document was thorough and complete, and if I was someone who knew the rules required to play, I feel like it would be very easy to pick up the game and play it. So I'll give completeness and scope a 2. Total score for The School That Eats Students is 10. Be sure to check out the game by Trey38 on itch.io. Mirrortattered by Threeleaper. Mirrortattered is a setting where a long-forgotten magic school exists in a mirror. 3 days ago, the students rebelled and took over the school. Now several forces struggle to take the school and all its power for themselves. Without giving too much away, Mirrortattered has a bit of a Kids on Bikes feel, which is fun. Never played it myself, but I've researched it a bit. I love the creepy mirrors and the secrets within, so I'll give Mirrortattered a 2 for theme and creativity. For the game design and mechanics, character creation is very straightforward and seems easy to complete. And there's a simple system for determining the cost of spellcasting. I think I can give a 3 for game design and mechanics. At first glance, not everything is clearly understood. I feel like you really have to read through the whole rule set to get the idea of how to play. But the rules were only 3 pages long, so it wasn't like it was a daunting task. For clarity and readability, a 2. The document is another plain black and white text, which is fine, easy to read and the margins are good, but nothing really pops out to you, so I'll have to give presentation and layout a 2. I feel like the character creation aspect is one of the most complete parts of the PDF. I feel like there could have been a little bit more in the setting, or more inspiration for gameplay. For completeness and scope, I give a 1. It's great, but definitely leaves me wanting more. Mirrortattered gets a final score of 10. Be sure to check it out, along with other great games by Threeleaper on itch.io. Abernathy, the Ensorcereller's Analysis of Unusual Familiars by PlotGap. In this little supplement, you will find some material suitable for any magic campaign, including an NPC that can act as your teacher, mentor, professor, or maybe even your headmaster. The supplement also includes 4 short lessons involving the process for finding your familiar. I really like the theme. I feel like more details on summoning and bonding with familiars has been something we've been missing in many games. I'd have to give theme and creativity a 2. As a system-neutral supplement, the PDF lacks any true mechanics. Instead, it's more of an open-ended story-based supplement, so I'd have to give a 1 for lack of actual game mechanics. The supplement is very clear, it's short and easy to read through, and I'm a fan of large print, so I have to give a 3 for clarity and readability. Presentation and layout, however, I have to say is a 1 for a plain black and white text document. Lastly, for completeness and scope, I feel like despite the submission being one of the shorter ones, it's pretty complete. It leaves you wanting more, but not in a bad way. I feel like the PDF could be easily picked up for quick inspiration, and any good game master should be able to build off of what's there, so I'll give it a 2. Total score for Abernathy, the Ensorcereller's analysis of unusual familiars is 9. PlotGap also has 2 other games available on itch.io for free download, so be sure to check them out. The Scholomance by Everspire by Second Level Bard Productions. Unfortunately, I will not be reviewing the Scholomance at Everspire by Second Level Bard Productions, as they have not followed the rule of making the community copies available to Game Jam participants. I cannot read what I cannot download. But if you're interested, be sure to check out Second Level Bard Productions on itch.io. Telamexia by Tarfarii. Lastly, a sort of last-minute addition, Tarfarii was unable to upload their game due to technical difficulties, but since they did complete their game during the jam, and they are an active member in my Discord server, I'll be reviewing their game as a bonus addition to the video. Telamexia, the goddess of mystery, has sensed dark forces on the rise and now has started a school for training mages on a wilderness island to face what is yet to come. I love the theme and backstory of the game. The tables are full of quirky encounters like goblin tweakers, so I award a 3 for theme and creativity. The mechanics are very simple and easy to follow, and it seems like nearly every roll moves the story forward and has an effect on your character. For game design and mechanics, another 3. Next up, clarity and readability, another 3, for easy to read and follow language and plenty of random generation charts to keep the game moving and keep the game master from second guessing what to do next. For presentation and layout, I do admire landscape orientation of the document. My only real criticism is that a lot of the text is dangerously close to the chart outlines. And as usual, I would have awarded higher points for having some artwork scattered here and there. For presentation and layout, a 2. And finally, for completeness and scope, Tarfarii did tell me directly that they put a lot of time into their submission, and that much is clear. The game feels very complete, containing everything you need to run multiple sessions, and maybe even multiple campaigns if things take a wrong turn for your final exam. Final score for Telamexia is 14. Be sure to check out Telamexia by Tarfarii on itch.io. Well, that's it for my guest submissions. Lastly, I'd like to talk about my own submissions for the jam, and I'm going to judge myself a bit more harshly than everyone else does. Boss Monster Academy by Sylvie the Dragon Games. First off, Boss Monster Academy is less of a game and more of a guided solo journaling experience. You take on the role of a monster from one of several archetypes, including Goblin King, Hoardkeeper Worm, and Lich Lord. You also get to choose a student archetype, such as Rebel, Social Butterfly, or Overachiever. Your choices determine what classes you take and what journaling and drawing prompts you choose as you study your way to becoming a boss monster. For theme and creativity, I've been praised a lot on the creativity and variety of the prompts throughout the book, and I did create the jam with this game in mind, so I'm going to give myself a gold star for this category and say 3. As a journaling experience, the game isn't much of a game and doesn't really have mechanics aside from choosing your path, so for game design and mechanics, I unfortunately get a 1. One bit of feedback I've gotten more than once is that some of the chapters are difficult to read due to poor font choice. I did really love the fonts, but I can agree they could be a little difficult to read. I have since released an easy read copy in a printable black and white, so for clarity and readability, I'll give it 2. I did go to school for graphic design, so I set myself to a higher standard, especially when it comes to layout. I feel like I did a pretty good job, and all my pages look very aesthetically pleasing. And each chapter that covers a different boss monster archetype has its own design, so I'm going to give myself a 3 for presentation and layout. For completeness and scope, I actually didn't complete all of the things I wanted for this book. I have big plans for an expansion of the game, including more prompts for day-to-day school happenings, as well as field trips for each archetype, and even more archetypes to cover some unrepresented monsters. For completeness and scope, I'll give myself a 1 for how out of control I let this game get. Final score for Boss Monster Academy is 10. Wandwood Academy by Sylvie the Dragon Games. Next, because I submitted not 1, but 2 games to the Magic School TTRPG Jam, I will also be reviewing Wandwood Academy. In Wandwood Academy, you take on the role of woodland creatures attending a Wandwood Academy, a school that teaches the subtle art of carving magical runes onto wooden tablets. Included with the game is a player guide as well as a game master's guide and a page of wooden tablets to be drawn on by the players, as in this game you're actually encouraged to sketch your creations to cast your magic. I feel that the cozy carving school vibes for the game is very on point for the theme, while also being very different from the other submissions. For theme and creativity, I'll be full of myself and give a 3 to Wandwood Academy. The game is pretty rules light, relying on a list of bonuses and penalties depending on your carvings, along with simple rolls to see how your magic worked. but in my opinion, the mechanics are nothing special, especially compared to some of my other more complex games. So for design and mechanics, I'll give it 2. I haven't gotten any feedback on readability of the script, but looking back, I do feel that choosing a very flowy, scripty, cursive-looking font may have been a bit of a mistake. So even though I feel like the rules are clear and easy to follow, I'm going to give clarity and readability a 1. Kind of harsh, but could explain why the game didn't do as well. For presentation and layout, I feel like the pages are a bit lacking. I didn't really have time to fill out the pages with little drawings and carvings, just a general background. But the background is very pretty, so I'll give it 2 for presentation and layout. Finally, for completeness and scope, while I feel like the game itself was complete, I didn't get a chance to really do any artwork for it, as I often fail to do for game jams. As usual, I like to let things get a little out of hand. So for completeness and scope, I'm going to be harsh again and give myself a 1. Final score for Wandwood Academy is 9. I'd like to thank everyone again for participating in my game jam and coming up with so many great Magic School themed TTRPGs. And I'm so excited to announce my next upcoming game jam, the Lost Civilization Jam, which my wonderful community has voted for. The game jam will be unranked as usual, no pressure, and just for fun. It will take place between July 1st and September 30th. I'll be opening up the jam to video games as well as tabletop games, and as an added bonus, I will be hosting a bit of another community challenge, where for all the submissions this game jam receives, I'll be updating and adding fun new critters to my YouTube video background. 5 submissions gets my fairy dragon goblin her own dragon egg. 10 submissions adopts a kitty. 15 submissions wins us a gelatinous cube. 20 submissions will grow a potted mandrake. 25 submissions will wander in a walking mushroom. 30 submissions buys us a baby griffin. 35 submissions will give our griffin a baby owl bear to play with. 40 submissions will earn us a miniature golem to guard and protect our pets. 45 submissions flies in a phoenix. And finally, if I get 50 submissions, I will draw in a dragon. Of course, these goals are cumulative, so if the game jam comes through and actually submits 30 games to the jam, I'll have quite a bit of drawing to do. So don't disappoint me. Spread the word and let's get that dragon. I promise for the next game jam, it won't take me so long to review the games. To participate in the Lost Civilization Jam, follow the link below to itch.io and be sure to join my Discord channel to talk all things games with my growing community of goblin nerds. You can talk about my games, your games, or anything you want really. And be sure to like and subscribe for more content, as I intend to post more consistently in the coming future.